Good morning, everyone. Pastor Patrick Walker. We are in Genesis chapter 46 and 47. I'm going to try to cover both of these chapters here for this devotional. So Genesis chapter 46 begins in verse 2 with God speaking to Israel one final time. This is at a pivotal moment in his life. Speaks to him in a vision at night. So I'm assuming vision, dream kind of use simultaneously. He says, Jacob, Jacob, here I am. I am God, the God of your father, he said. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you. So that's very encouraging. I will be with you. So he's directing his path. He's saying, this is the right path to go. Take this path. I'll be with you. And I will surely bring you back again to this land. And Joseph's own hand, now at this point he had not seen his son, and it had been 22 years since he had seen his son's face. Because the last time they said goodbye was when he sent Joseph, go check on your brothers. Joseph was wearing his favorite, the coat that his father had made for him and given him. And he says, and Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. Now Joseph has sent carts, horses, everything to transport his family back. And we're going to see a listing of the sons and their sons, the grandsons, here. And then we see a total to kind of conclude the chapter. As they were on their way back, Joseph got into his chariot. This is verse 29. And he rode out to meet them at the border of Egypt. And it says, as soon as Joseph appeared before them, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. So what a joyous reunion after 22 years between a father and a son. And of course, we know Joseph was the favorite. So that relationship that had existed for the first 17 years of his life was, I would assume, was very intimate, was very close. Those two were good friends. Their hearts were connected. Now separated for more than half of his life, because now it's been 22 years since he had last seen his father, but now he's able to enjoy his father for years to come at this happy reunion. Israel, Jacob, super happy. Of course, he's revived in hearing about that Joseph is still alive, and he's excited to make the journey and come down. Now, last thing, I want to move into chapter 47. So one of the things that Joseph warns his brothers about, he says, shepherds are not looked upon. I mean, that's a very low caste in society. And so it's very detestable to the Egyptians. So when you come before Pharaoh, and Joseph's going to select 5 of his brothers, and then his father's going to come. He said, don't say that you're shepherds. Just say that you tended livestock. So kind of twist the truth, so to speak. I mean, they did tend livestock. I'm sure they did more than just shepherding. But I think that was their primary occupation. That was what Jacob was good at, and that's where he made all of his wealth up in Haran. So they come in before Pharaoh, but of course you can see Joseph kind of cringe, because when Pharaoh asks in verse 2, Verse 3, what is your occupation? Your servants are shepherds, they replied to Pharaoh, just as our fathers were. So they just answered honestly and transparently without fear. I don't know if Joseph had kind of a fear. We're always, think about how many decisions we make in life that are motivated by fear rather than faith, where we perhaps twist the truth because we think we can present it in a way that limits the hostility, or we're fearful of a response or reaction. They just share the truth. And rather than Pharaoh communicating his disdain, he basically says, well, if you have any special ability, please, I want you to take care of my livestock. And he puts them in charge, verse 6. And he gives them the best of the land. And then after he presents only 5 of his 11 brothers. They go out, and I see Jacob, his father, coming in. And verse 7, then Joseph brought his father Jacob in and presented him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked him, "How old are you?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The years of my pilgrimage are 130." So he's 130 years at that age. So remember, at this age, Joseph is about 39, which means Jacob had him when he was 91. 91, and he wasn't even the last child. So that's an old father, but we're going to see in a moment how old he lives to. Because later on, I don't know if it's here. I know it's coming up. He lives to be 147. So he's got 17 more years of life. But Pharaoh is amazed. He says, how old are you? 130. And he says, my years have been few and difficult. So think about that. That's kind of encouraging to me. He says, my years have been difficult. I've gone through a lot. I've lived as a stranger. I've lived in tents. I've faced some opposition in life. I've faced some problems. I've lost a wife. Remember his favorite wife, Rachel, when they were moving back, she died. I've gone through the distress and the trauma of what I thought was permanently losing a son for the last 22 years. And my boys have done things. Remember one of his boys, the oldest, slept with his concubine, maidservant, and the other two boys attacked that not innocent, but attacked that city and killed all the males. And then the hostility of all the Canaanites, and they were going to come and surround him, and he was fearful about them being wiped out as a family. So he's been through a lot. We've been through a lot. I kind of could say that myself. My years have been few and difficult. But he goes on and says, and they do not equal the years of the pilgrimage, uses that word a second time in this verse, of my fathers. Now, he lives to be 147. And do you remember Isaac before him lives to be 180? Abraham lives to be 175, and Abraham's father lives to be 205. And then the ages keep growing beyond that, all the way back to Shem, and Noah. So we're only talking within 10 generations of the flood, of coming off the ark. And of course, those lifespans, I think Shem lived another 500 years after the flood. 500 years. And then there was a couple people that lived 400 years. Then it was down into the 200s. And so he says 130 years is nothing compared with my ancestry and how long they've lived. He says, my years have been few and difficult, and they do not equal the pilgrimage of my father. Now that word pilgrimage that the NIV translates, that Hebrew word means, it refers to a stranger who is traveling through foreign lands. Okay. It's kind of like you check in at a hotel as a guest. You are a guest. It's that communicating that essence that you're a traveling guest, but you're not in your home country, your home territory. You're just traveling through. So pilgrimage, we see this again in the New Testament as well. There's this, I actually listened to a little clip of Billy Graham this morning. I think it was like 6 minutes. And he was talking about this exact thing. I mean, he said, when I was young and people warned me, your life is going to go by so fast. He said, it never registered, But now that you're older, you can look back and you can see how quickly. And I look back and I was like, wow, man, I feel like 30 years ago, I can remember being the age of my children. I can remember my grandparents going over for a visit. And now my grandparents are long gone, and that's 30 years has passed. And now I'm in middle age and I've got children of my own, so our life on this earth is so short. And he's even saying this at 130. And I bet those who were even older than Jacob would say the same thing. So think about this. I think this is a good theme for today is we are simply guests. We are simply traveling through foreign territory on a pilgrimage, on a journey to the celestial city, to our heavenly city, to our final destination, our eternal home. We don't want to we're living in tents. Don't put all of your eggs in any one basket here. Everything that we have is going to be left behind. I get so stressed out sometimes or anxious, you can get so narrowly focused on the things that are happening moment by moment, the circumstances of your day, you miss the big picture. Like none of this is going to matter from a eternal perspective. And so we get so worked up about the present without stepping back and considering the whole span of our life is just like a blooming flower, Solomon says, that will quickly wither and fade. So let me finish out this this chapter. He blesses him. He blesses him. That's amazing. Jacob, Pharaoh's most powerful man, Jacob comes in, blesses Pharaoh, prays over him, speaks over him. I bet that was a memorable moment. And you think about it in your life, under the right circumstances, perhaps in front of a large audience for Pharaoh. Maybe imagine if Pharaoh had never been blessed by his father, or blessed by a man of importance, or told that he was worthy, that he was valuable, that he was loved. So we see Jacob, like I picture him laying his hands in the front of everybody, hundreds of people in the throne room, right? And he's praying over Pharaoh. And I think that's a powerful image. And I know the power of blessing, and so many people who have never had positive words spoken over them in their life. And so maybe that's a calling for us to exercise, to follow in Jacob's shoes, and to look for opportunities to be a blessing to people, to pray for people in the moment, to lay hands on people, to speak words, positive words over their life, to cancel curses, to cancel traumatic events from the past, shame, guilt, things that can follow you for many, many years. How do we speak God's life, God's purpose, God's calling, God's mission, God's favor over people that we meet, saved and unsaved? As we kind of hear in our heart, God, how do you see this person? How did you create this person? And how do I come in agreement with your heart for this individual and pray that into existence and bless them? So let's stop there. Thought that was good. That is Genesis 46 and a little bit of 47, and we'll pick up here when we reconvene tomorrow. All right, God bless.